Everybody, and welcome to season 7 of the Transcendence Succeed show. Despite it saying season 6 there on the intro, I better get that fixed. So welcome everybody. Today we are joined by a returning guest, Anne Clark. So Anne and I have worked together and still work together in my business for well over a year now. And when we last spoke here about 2 seasons ago, we had so many things to cover that she came back to have another conversation because we really didn't even touch the surface, did we, the first time?
No, we didn't.
So Anne is a skilled online business manager and digital marketer who helps entrepreneurs grow their businesses through authentic strategies in social media, email marketing, and project management. Alongside her online business management work, Anne is an Akashic Records Intuitive, blending her spiritual gifts with practical expertise to guide clients in overcoming blocks, aligning with their purpose, and achieving success in both business and life. So welcome back to the show, Anne. I'm so happy that you're joining us again today.
Thanks, Megan. So excited to be back.
How's the beginning of 2025 been for you so far?
Very busy. It was off to a very busy start, but a very exciting start. There's lots of things happening. So, yeah, it's really exciting. Looking forward to seeing what the year unfolds.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's dive straight in. So the Akashic Records, can you describe exactly what the Akashic Records are and maybe describe them to someone who is new to the concept?
Absolutely. So my interpretation of the Akashic Records is that it's like it's our inner soul's journey from past, present, and future, what the possibilities may be. So the best way I love to describe it is it's like we have a filing cabinet for ourselves. And inside the filing cabinet, you have all the different levels, but you have files for health, you have files for relationships, files for, your business, all the different elements of your life. Mm-hmm. And your Akashic Records is our way of tapping into our spiritual library and accessing in to find out things that are showing up, getting clarity, healing any pain or blocks, just learning about our challenges and patterns that might be reoccurring. And so it's like a little library filled, whether it's a library full of bookshelves and each book is your thing. I like to refer to it as the filing cabinet. We tap in to see what's turning up around that topic that you want to know about.
Okay. And so when you talk about it being a filing cabinet, so is it just the filing cabinet for what's happened in this lifetime?
Or no, it can be past lifetimes and also, future. What, I'm not, there's psychic mediums and things like that. That's not me. It's about, they'll tell me what potentially will be there. But, for me, I believe we all have what's called our free will, our choice, and we can choose to change the path. We might be guided at this point in time that this is where, what's showing up. But when we get there, something may have changed, or something else might have came up and we made that choice to change the path. So the Akashic Records for me could show up things in the future, but, you know, if you choose your path and alter it, then, you know, other things will show up. On the other side of that, or to encompass in it, there is the divine plan, and we all have those divine plans, and our guides, our team of lights is what I call mine. They will help us. There is a bigger path to where we need to get to. And, you know, sometimes to get to that end point, you might have a vision that you're going to go this way, but it might actually be through another means or another path to get there. It doesn't mean you won't get there, but they will keep showing, you know, the same signs until you pay attention to them. So, you know, if you're a person that believes in, say, angel numbers, or if you believe in spiritual animals, I see animals all the time. I'm starting to see probably a lot more numbers as well, but very much animals. And I know you and I have had conversations about this before, because I often see a fox. And I'm like, oh, what's with all the foxes? Like, it will, I'll see them on the side of the road, which, you know, I live in a countryside. So, you know, yes, there's wildlife, but it's probably not something I would expect to see. And then I've seen them either dead or alive, or I'll see a picture. One day I was out with my daughter, and she's like, oh, Mum, I really like this. And then she happened to turn around, and then I was like, oh, it's a fox. How funny is that?
Yeah.
But it will show up even on my social media feeds or on my phone. So I'm obviously being shown it repetitively, because it's when I had to look into what the meaning of the fox was, it meant deception. There was, for what was taking place in my life, it was actually around deception. So there was somebody around me that was doing something that was going to impact me in a way. So it was like a forewarning. So it was quite interesting. And then once it took place and I was aware of the situation and it was resolved, I didn't see any foxes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Our team of lights will keep showing us messages, or the universe will keep showing us messages until we see what needs to. And it's a bit like when we repeat patterns in our life, that we're like, you know, and I know you and I have had these conversations where I go, I don't know why this keeps happening. And it's obviously, there are lessons you need to learn, and when you've learnt them, it will change. I remember as a child, I used to always have this one particular dream. It was the weirdest dream, and I could never understand why it kept coming back. And it was a dream of me running on cobblestones.
Right.
And somebody was chasing me, and the stones were quite big stones, and I was trying to run, and I would always get to like the end of the path and just about to turn the corner to get away, but I would wake up and I would always have this, and then it would just keep reoccurring. And then the moment the issue was resolved or came to head and it was resolved, I've never had the dream again. So it kept occurring because it was associated with something that was taking place. So our Akashic Records, you know, they all kind of tie in together. Things show up. You know, the universe works in divine ways of getting that message to us, and, you know, having the ability to tap into Akashic Records. You can learn this, and you can also have a natural gift to be able to do it. So I have the natural ability, and I just, probably more so in the last 3 years, it's really come forward where I've seen it in a stronger light than I ever did before. I knew it was there, but I didn't understand it.
Right.
So,
And so when we talk about like the filing cabinet, so say for instance, like as a child, I don't know, at school, your teacher told you all the time that you weren't very smart or you were stupid or silly or that sort of, so is it those sort of things that get filed in your records, and then as you get older, they
everything
start to
we
show
do in
up?
our lives, all of our journey. I mean, you know, there's those quotes, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We learn through our experiences and our emotions, our physical feelings, all of the senses, they all come into play in that whole. And the filing cabinet captures all the details. And there'll be some that will be more stronger for us to recognise and associate with than others. So, you know, there'll be things that we've seen that just, you know, they're sitting in the filing cabinet, we may never touch them. But other things that will be more prevalent and very strong that we need to be aware of, and they will keep repeating because this is an important I guess, element in our life that we need to look at.
Yeah, okay. So they're like, I guess they're belief systems, I suppose, as well, right?
Yeah,
Because, if you go back to that example of a teacher telling you that you're not very smart, then you go through life and you've got all these things in this one file of all these situations where a
yeah,
teacher has said that you're not smart, and you get older and then you think, oh, I can't go for that job, or I can't run
yeah,
a business because I'm not smart enough.
yeah.
So is it then something like that that a client would come to you and say, oh, I feel like I've got a block to this, and you kind of open up those records and see that?
Yeah, so for me, when I open up the records, my team will either share the information, either showing me,
Mhm.
or they might tell me a name, or they might give me a feeling. So it depends on that person, and I guess how open their energy is, because, you know, you have those skeptics and they get on there and you can tell, like, that door is shut. And honestly, if that is the way you're going to be because you're skeptical of the person, then you're not going to get that clarity because you've already shut that door to stop it happening. And it doesn't mean that you're going to sit there and go, well, I want to know about this, but ABC happened. You're not going to give away your secrets, but, you know, by opening up and having that communication, you know, you and I've had this where we've talked about something and all of a sudden your beautiful mum comes in too. She's got a lot to say and she guides us and says, you know, and I'll tell you stuff, or I'll say, oh, look, this has turned up for, you know, if I'm talking to one of my other clients or a customer and something comes up, they're like, oh, actually yeah, I know exactly what that is. To me, the information makes no sense, but to you, it's come forward to me for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then so when you see those sort of things in the records and you work with the client, is it then sort of a matter of like you're healing it in the sense of in the records that, okay, let's heal it. Now it's sort of shut down, that it actually we can just file.
Depends on, yeah, I think it depends on what it is. So some clients, like I've gone to have sessions and like literally just before I've turned on the Zoom camera to connect with the person, I've been overwhelmed with the emotion to cry, or I even was on a phone call with a client and I felt very heavy, like I thought I was going to fall on the ground. I just felt really weighted down. So I just said to them, you know, are you okay? And they're like, oh, why do you ask? And I said, because I feel really heavy. I feel like I'm going to collapse on the ground, like I'm carrying the biggest weight. And it was that trigger point that made them open up about what was going on. So by them talking about it, then I was able to see further into what was coming up around it and what was happening and where they needed to, I guess, in a comfortable, I don't think we should ever be in a point that we're forced to do something that makes us feel crippled with fear or anxiety. And I believe that my team work with the best of heart and intentions. So, you know, we just look at how they can show up. I recently did a session with someone and there was just so many things going on in their life and they wanted to know their business strategy, like, oh, what am I going to do? And all, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting told more of that later. At the moment, I'm told you need to be focusing on this, this, this. And then they started crying because they didn't want to deal with it. And I said, the reason why, this is why it's telling me. And so it was quite funny. It made them see it all differently.
Mm,
And
yeah.
like I had a funny call with a lady who she was very blunt. She just sat there and I was like, that'll be really interesting. And she's like, I said, so before I get on the call actually with them, when you fill in the intake form for me, I actually ask for permission to access your records because, you know, it's a courtesy thing, but two, you can't be going around jumping into everybody's records. It's rude.
Yeah.
What you in mind. So I always ask permission. So on the form, I'm like, do you give me permission to access into your Akashic Records? And, you know, obviously if they're going to have the session, that would be a yes. However, I still like to ask the question.
Yeah.
And anyway, so when I had this lady and before the call, I always tap in half an hour beforehand. I write down everything that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I need to make sure I'm not trying to analyze. I just have to literally write what is presented, because to me it doesn't make sense, but
Yeah.
to them it will. And it's always important to watch out for the interpretations. I know when one of my mentors told me when she was first doing it, she was working with a girl, and she was shown like a strawberry field, and these two little girls getting the strawberries and putting them on as lipstick. So she said to the girl, I see you putting on like red lipstick. And the girl goes, I don't get that. It makes no sense. And she goes, well, it's like you're in a field and you've got strawberries, you're putting it on your lips. And she goes, oh my gosh, when we were kids, we used to go to my uncle's farm and we used to play in the strawberry field. So her interpreting it at the start to say it was the red lipstick was totally off par.
Right.
So even when I did a session with my own husband, I was shown there was a man, and I'm going, I'm hearing the word horse. And I'm like, does not make sense to me at all. Like, why would there be a man and a horse? And he goes, oh my gosh, I worked with a man called Horse.
Right.
So he was trying to tell me he was here and around him, but, you know, this was his name. But I was like, Horse? Okay, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing. And, you know, sometimes when I'm in those sessions, I don't remember. And I always say to them, look, things might come through. I'll tell you what they're saying, but I won't necessarily remember the content.
Yeah.
But I'm just letting you know that this is what's being presented.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we'll hear from our sponsors, because I think we're getting really deep now, and I don't know whether we're going to have a break between the next couple of things that I want to talk to you about. So let's just take a break and hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks, Anne. Welcome back, everybody. So, Anne, you were just talking before in relation to that you had a client, a lady that had booked in for a session, and that when you asked them to access permission to access their Akashic records, but you were saying that she was sitting there and she just wasn't saying much.
Yeah. So before the call, I wrote down all the things that had come through, and when I said to her, look, before the call, this is what I did. And when I told her what was on the list, she was just like, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's not. And I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be really hard. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I've got this wrong. So I had all these seeds of doubt. And then as the call went on, everything I had on the list was actually right. And it all came up in the conversation. So one of the things was about relationships, and that I wrote down relationships, and she was hurting. And it was actually around her relationship with her husband, because she always has to organize everything. And she was hurt because he never, ever organizes anything. So, I'm a life coach as well. So as part of the strategy, I said to her, the problem is what came forward was that he feels he's going to fail straight away. That's how he feels. So therefore he doesn't try. What you need to do is have date nights at home and ask him to bring home a bottle of wine. You organise the rest, but let him take small steps towards that, because then he'll start to feel more confident and then he will show up the way you want to. But at the moment, you're like, her vibe, her energy was very, not judgmental, but very harsh. Like, it was a high expectation, and she was already setting him up for a fail, and she just didn't realize this.
Right.
So that's why he didn't show up the way she wanted him to. So I said to him, you need to eliminate this fear and block. But yeah, like the same thing for me at the start of the call, when I said what came through, she was instantly on the defense. And I said, I'm not here to attack or judge. I don't know why these came forward. But yeah, it was quite funny that come the end of the call, everything that I've written down it was just a different way to get to that point.
Right.
So what I said at the start came with the judgment of, no, I haven't got any relationships, and it wasn't an attack. But when you followed around the path, it wasn't a straight line, it was a curve. It was actually aligned to what we were talking about and what came forward. So
Right.
yeah, so I actually checked in with her a month later and said, how's things going? She's like, yep, you brought the bottle of wine, small steps. And so I think she was able to see that that expectation was, she was setting herself up for disappointment, and she didn't need to. She just needed to be kind and give him that kindness too, that he could show up in a way that worked. So yeah, like things will come through. And I've had sessions where I was just literally about to open up the Zoom call and I just wanted to burst into tears. And I was like, oh, geez, wow, and I got really hot. Like my hands were sweating. There was literally water pouring off of them. I'm like, oh my God, that was quite a second ago. And when I got on the call with the lady, I just said to her, I said, oh, I'm about to burst into tears. And that's literally as soon as I said it, that's what she did. And I'm like, oh, let it cry. I'm a big advocate for letting out your emotions and never be ashamed of crying. Let it free, because it's releasing. It's your body's way of releasing, the energy that's trapped inside that needs to come out. So, and yeah, her journey was, quite sad. She had lost her husband and she was raising her kids on her own. And so that's where the pain was coming from. And yeah, it was quite funny. It was his birthday that day and I didn't know. And I said, I'm hearing you got to get a cake. And she's like, it's his birthday today. I said, oh, chocolate cake? And she goes, oh my God, yes, that's his favorite cake. I'm like, there you go. Like, so, and he came, my guides told me was that one of her sons was very much like the dad.
Right.
That he's standing up and he's proud and all. She's like, to a T, you couldn't have nailed it. And I was like, oh, there you go. Because I didn't know this lady. So for me, her confirming back was the validation that, okay, so what they're saying is correct. Yeah. And sometimes I need to make sure I don't get too fast, because sometimes messages will come through and they're the subtle things that I'm like, oh, okay, hang on. I'm getting this. Is this correct and aligned? And so they're like, yeah, that's related to this. And, I had a call with this really beautiful lady. Like, she was just gorgeous, but gosh, she's had a hard life and she stopped loving herself. And I said to her, oh, look, with all of the wonderful things going on in your life, it's just so hard on yourself. And, there was things coming up we were talking about, but I said, you need to stop. And I said, you need to find yourself again. I said, none of the rest of it will happen until you learn to love yourself again. Yes. And she was a beautiful artist. And I'm like, you need to be doing this, because when you talk about it, your eyes just light up. It's your healing process. So yeah, it was quite an interesting journey to see that transformation. So yeah, it's quite funny, the things that can come through. Like, I can feel the emotions. And sometimes even I'll be sitting there and I'm like, God, I'm really emotional. Like, where's this coming from? And often it's not related to me. Yeah. Or there are days where I just can't work out where it's coming from. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes a person around me, and then I usually just sit in and just, who's this about? What's going on? Yeah. And, I lost my father late last year, and you know, I've got a good Catholic, beautiful family, but, you know, they're very closed off to this side of life. And I guess as natural, there was seeds of doubt around, you know, do you really have the ability? I think you're just being sucked in.
Yeah.
And then, you know, things came up that I was able to validate back to them, or I would pass on messages that came through. And so when my dad had terminal cancer, but what happened was his pain medication was out of whack and he was going into hospital to just get it adjusted. And then when he went in, my mum, he just suddenly deteriorated. Mum's like, oh, I just, you know, said to my sister, ring Anne, find out, you know, what's going on with Dad. Anyway, so I sat on my desk and I, you know, tapped in, opened up, and I burst into tears. And I have never cried so hard. And my head was like, that doesn't make sense. They're just adjusting his pain medication. What do you mean this is it? And I just, and like, you know, I rang my sister rang me the next day. She's like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, I didn't know how to tell her. And I'm like, pray for the best, expect the worst. And then when I spoke to my mum, I said, you know, they're telling me this is it. This is time. But it doesn't matter. My head was fighting with my heart, and yeah, a week later, you know, we sadly lost my dad, and I managed to get home to see him. And on the flight home, it was quite funny. I was sitting next to two very chatty old ladies, and they were going. And I'm like, oh, I just need to tune out. So I just closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I got a message through, and it was Tom and Isabel said it's time for Jimmy to come home. And I'm like, it's Tom and Isabel. And I realised it was my grandparents. So when I got to the hospital, I was talking to my mum outside, and I said to her, oh, I got this really strange message. Tom and Isabel said it's time for Jimmy to come home. And she's like, really? Who's Tom and Isabel? And I said, his mum and dad. She goes, oh, yeah, of course. Anyway, a couple of hours later, we were sitting in the room, and out of the blue, Dad was out and wasn't conscious. Like, I didn't get to talk to him as such. But out of the blue, he pipes out, Tom and Isabel said it's time for me to come home, but I need to make sure Anne's okay. And I was like, my mum was looking at me going, and I was like, yeah, there you go. And, you know, while I was there with him, I just said to him, Dad, I am okay. Because my husband and I had moved interstate with our kids. So Dad was worried we were on our own over here and didn't have family close. So yeah, I just reassured him, and just, my mum was really lovely, and just I arrived on the Saturday, spoke to him on the Sunday, and when I went on the Sunday, I said, oh, he's gone. His body's just here. Because my brother and I had both flown back home to say our goodbyes. And, yeah, he when I just had that time with him, I just said to him, you know, you've been an amazing dad, and it's okay. You can go home.
Yeah.
With Isabel, and yeah, he was gone. So yeah, it's pretty special that I was able to tap in. And of course, you know, I'm like, hey, this can't be right.
Yeah.
It's just being altered. It can't. Yeah. But yeah, when they want to let me know, they let me know very, very strongly.
And was that his Akashic Records that you tuned into, or were they yours?
Both, actually, but more him. When I first tapped in, you know, I kept hearing, it's time for me to come home. It was also preparing. I think, you know, it can be collective. It was probably for me, my mum, my sister, because we were very close, and, you know, Dad as well. And so, you know, it was letting us know what to expect. So, yeah, I think a collective in this scenario. So, yeah, because it was affecting multiple people. So, just across the paths.
Right. And so, like, I mean, I use oracle cards, you know, like I'm an angel card reader, so I use cards. But I think, like, for me, it's like the Akashic Records are just a different type of way that you access that information, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I did your amazing oracle card course, and if you haven't done it, please do check it out, because it was just another way for me to, I guess, affirm what I know.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting, because when we were doing your program, you would pull out the card of the week, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, oh yeah, this is nice. And then I'm like, I would be coming to you going, oh my gosh, the card was on the money, like the things that were coming up.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, it is, it's a bit like psychic mediums, oracle card readers, Akashic. We're all doing the same kind of work, but just we're all coming in through different doors to the same point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people connect better with one format to another. It's a bit like anything we do in life. There's different ways we do it. You're running your business. We're all running businesses, but we're all doing it different ways. We're all showing up different ways. We all show up different ways on social media. We're not the originators of the work, but we turn up in a way that's aligned to us as individuals.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, interesting, isn't it? It's just another tool, isn't it? It's
yeah. And they can complement each other. I know you actually have a natural ability to tap into energies as well, but that's not where you want to sit and position yourself in life. You love working with oracle cards, and they're validating what you intuitively already know.
Yeah.
The same as me. I just tap in that way, but learning the oracle cards from you meant that I was able to open up another way in which I could show up and understand what was going on and validate, as much as we might have the gift and the abilities, we still have moments of doubt.
Yeah, and I also think too is that, when we do because it's always, does that make sense, or particularly when we channel. But I also think too that, particularly because you did the course as well, I think it's great that sometimes, when I've done a session with you, I'm fully in because I know that there's all these ways that you can get healings and readings and all of that. Whereas some people, if they're new to the process, sometimes cards are great because then they can physically, it's tangible, right? You can tangibly touch that, or for you, when you tap into their records and then you write things down, for you, it's then a way of validating to say, I wrote this down, this is what I got. So it's almost a tangible thing for someone as well.
Yeah, and like when we did your course, I had no idea there were so many different ways of doing oracle card readings. I was talking to my sister. I'm like, you need to do this course this year because I had no idea. She goes, really? I didn't know that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's awesome. You need to do it. And it's that, there's different ways. Like, if I get something through and I go, oh, I don't get that. And then so my way of validating for the Akashic Records, I will ask a yes, no answer.
Okay.
And, for those who are new to it or who want to explore it and understand it, you can ask those who have crossed over, our family, our friends, they are around us. And if you want to check that they're there, ask for the sign, but tell them the sign you want to see.
Yeah, you've got to be specific.
Because sometimes you can get a sign and you're not paying attention. I know when my auntie who passed away, my mum's like, oh, how come we never talk about Doreen? And I'm like, well, and then all of a sudden I hear, well, I'm sitting beside her at the kitchen table every day. She doesn't talk to me. And I'm like, Mum, she says she's sitting here doing this and you don't talk to her. And she's like, and I said, ask for the sign. So, I know she came through and she said to me she was the symbol of a brown butterfly. Like, we see white ones here.
Yeah.
And then one day I have never seen so many butterflies. Like, my husband works about 45 minutes away. So I was driving to pick him up from work. And on the side of the road, there were butterflies coming out of all of the bush. Like, it just blew my mind, but they were all brown ones. And I go, well, you are making yourself well and truly known. Yeah. We are hearing you. So,
I get it.
Yeah, and I know, like, my sister is very new to all of this, and, she'd just rather ask me than try and work it out herself. But when my dad's diagnosis, sadly, we lost my brother, and the next day after his funeral, my dad got the call to say that he had terminal cancer. And when it was, downline a year and a half, 2 years later, my sister, they had a specialist appointment and she's like, oh God, is it going to be worse? John, if Dad's got cancer and it's worse, I want to see butter. If it's good and good news, I want to see ice. Anyway, her and my husband and I were mucking around one day, texting each other. And next minute she called me, she goes, oh my God, it's butter. And I'm like, what? What's butter? And she's like, I asked John for a symbol. It was butter. So it was the first thing you spot. So I'll be driving if I want to know something, or if I want to know somebody's there, I'm like, you know what? if, this is happening, I want to see this. If it's not, and then they'll keep showing the sign until you spot it.
Until you see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very persistent, definitely.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And being open to that sort of stuff is fantastic. I mean, I just said to you before, I went on my walk this morning and I tuned into my creator and mum and dad and all my guides and all the people that are around me. And I was like, yep, is that everybody? And as I kept walking, I saw a feather, and that's always showing like a sign that your angels are around you.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, great, I've got everyone here. Right, the team's here. Now, as I was walking, I'm doing some work, but I'm really open to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, it's a bit like anything in life. You can go through tunnel vision and not notice it. But when you suddenly start to see it, you appreciate it, and you keep growing, and you can practice it on yourself. And, you tap into it and slowly learn. And the more you do it, the better you get. Pretty much with anything in life, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And, if I don't know something, or I'm not sure of the message, I always find that when I ask a yes, no, I can define easily the response. And that's always my backup compass to check in. Is this right? And, I'll double check what they're saying. I know when I was first dabbling, my husband, and he was my guinea pig. He's a good boy. But we were tapping in one night, and I said his mum was coming up, and we knew she had heart issues at that time. And I said, no, I'm getting back. And he's like, no. And I go, yeah, back. Anyway, happened to be a half an hour later, his dad called, and he had him on speaker. And so I heard my husband going, oh, and how's mum's back? And he's like, oh, she's getting physio and all. And he just looked at me and went, told you it was back. See? So it was that validation that I went, aha, okay, there you go. This is why it's there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so do people, is there a blend of what people come to you for? Like, is it more professional or is it more personal?
A bit of both, really. Most of them that have come through have been around business.
Okay.
But, often life, when you're running your own business, your life is involved in your business. As much as you go, it's not. It is. And, I know one client said to me, can you tap in? I need to know what's going to happen with my business, this. But they just kept saying to me, it's a personal life that needed to be dealt with. And I said, you need to show up. The person's around you, but you're not seeing it because you're doing that. You're too busy looking the wrong way, so to speak. So, I said to them, this is what they're telling me you need to be doing. So that's what they did. I said, the business will flow in when it's time to. And they'll pop up with stuff here and there. It's a bit like you. I came to sit at my desk one day. I was like, right, Sunday, I'm going to go and I'm going to do some work, catch up on all my client stuff. And then in popped this lady. And I'm like, oh, hello. She's like, I need you to do some stuff for me and I need to do it today. And she stayed with me all day whilst I worked on a project which was related to you. And then I said, I validated who she was to you. Just before Christmas last year, my brother-in-law, sadly, his nephew was involved in a really bad car accident. And my sister had called me and just said, oh, can you just tap in to see what's going to happen, whether or not he will survive this? And I got told no. And I said to him, so what they did was they presented him to me. And he was by a lake and he was getting stones and throwing them, pipping them sideways, and he was happy and smiling. Anyway, he did pass away. And when I spoke to my sister, I said, oh, this is what they showed me. She goes, that's it. He lives near a lake. That was his favorite thing to do. I said, well, there you go. But it was quite hard at the time. For my sister, she was, wanting to know, is this going to be okay? What are they going to do? And it was just, they showed me in a way that was gentle. And often our clients, what my team do is they will show something from my life that is a parallel to what they're trying to explain, so that I can go, okay, in my world, it looks like this. And so for that, this is what this means for you.
Right. Okay.
Because sometimes they'll show stuff and I'll be like, I remember my brother, when he first came through, I was like, oh my God, I can see my brother. But it was like I was looking at a movie and he was standing over there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at you. Like, oh my God, I can see you. And I spent the whole time going, oh my God. And he's like, no. And I'm like, you need to stop talking because I have no idea what you're saying. I just cannot believe I'm looking at you. So he started holding up like pictures and pointing at the people he was talking about. And I'm like, yep, nah, not going to happen. I just cannot believe I'm looking at you. And then when my dad and my dad had crossed, all I wanted was to see him.
Yeah.
And anyway, then one day I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at my dad and my brother spent the whole time just killing himself laughing because he thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, do not talk, either of you. But oh my God, Dad, I can see you.
Right.
And like in my earlier days, my husband's grandfather used to come through to me all the time. And I said, oh, did your grandfather, and I never met him. So I said to Dean, did your grandfather, used to wear this? Did he used to do this to a T? He goes, yep, that's him. And we were out to lunch one day, him and I, and I said, your grandfather's just popped up and he's asked for a shandy. And he goes, oh my God, that's so funny. And like, just the things that he would tell me that, like, to me, they didn't mean anything, but for Dean, they made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite interesting that they all come through with their little messages when I need to know them. So yeah.
And so when you're tapping into someone's Akashic records, is it usually then your guides that are giving you what you need?
They'll help along. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so things will, like, I will either hear words, I'll see like pictures of something, or, when I write it down, I don't necessarily pay attention to what I write. I just write what comes through. So it's almost like I'm not necessarily in that moment.
You're just channeling.
Yeah. So, and then when I talk them and I start going through it, other messages, and that's where my team will come in and they will start helping me to explain the things that I'm seeing and hearing and that are part of the so they'll also use parallels again to help me be able to explain that scenario to them if I'm in that moment where I'm like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be saying here, or how do I get that across? They will suddenly show me something that relates to my life that I can go, okay, now I understand. So, and I always say to clients, when I don't know, they'll give me a comparison that I can be able to interpret it, explain to you exactly what they're trying to get me to say to you.
And I guess that they're then turning it from an angelic spiritual message into like a human 3D
tangible one,
message, right? Yeah. And so can anyone tap into their Akashic record?
Absolutely. And, the best place to start is on yourself.
Yep.
And, you hear people talking about, you need to meditate, and you're like, yeah. For me, meditation doesn't mean sitting in my Om section. It could be anything. So I'm an artist. So I love painting and drawing and doodling. So I bought my kids, and it was your suggestion, was 365 days of art. I bought them for the kids and myself for Christmas, and we sit there every day. But what happens is I get into a relaxed state, and being in the relaxed state means I'm opening my channels and allowing messages to come through.
Yep.
It just means that I'm in a subconscious level. So, practicing meditation, like you going for your walks every day. And when you're walking, you're in a creative space, you're relaxing, you're taking yourself out of the picture, which is why, like in business, it's really important to step away from your business because you stifle yourself. If I work consecutively 7 days in a row or 2 weeks in a row, my energy and my ability to be creative and allow messages to come through depletes. So having that day at least once a week where I'm digital free, everything free, and I'm just flowing, relaxing, doing whatever I want to do means that I'm allowing that creative and that open channel around me. So the same thing for those who want to tap in. You want to get into a point where you're relaxing. If you're not into meditation, you can get guided meditations, but you can just listen to music, things that get you in that relaxed state to be open. I always have a pen and paper with me, and then I will ask them, I have a little prayer that I see, which is, asking them to grant me permission. And then I will ask my questions, and whatever comes through, I jot it down because I don't want to waste my time trying to interpret it at that point. I just let everything flow through, write it all down, and then I'll go back and look at it after I've finished. But, that's a great way. And, asking, yes, no questions is always good, because I always find when I ask a yes, no, before I've even finished asking my question, I'll hear the yes. If I don't hear it, I know it's a no, or I need to rephrase my question.
Right, yeah. And you've got to be really specific, because the more specific you are, your guides and your angels love that, because they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're asking.
Yeah.
Whereas, if it's a very open-ended question, they're like, well, I'm not really sure how I'm going to answer this, so I'm just going to answer it how I think you might want to hear.
Yeah, and that's it. And, the great practice is just like my sister did, yes, no. If I'm meant to know this, show me this, give them 2 objects. So when my brother passed away, it was quite funny because I ended up writing a children's book for it, but I was explaining to my children about you can ask for signs. You can ask for signs for those who've gone to let you know that they're there. And at the time in which I was saying this to them, I'm like, it could be like a rainbow. But in my head, I was thinking 2 rainbows. And no sooner had the words left my mouth, we were walking out the front house to get in the car, and 2 rainbows were literally in the sky. And I said, look. And next moment, my daughter's like screaming at the top of her voice, oh my God, Uncle John, I can see you. So every day she sees a rainbow and she screams it. But if the message is for you, you may be the only one that will see it. There are times where we've been driving and my daughter's gone, oh my God, I can see Uncle John. And I'm like, at the first time she did it, I swear to God, I was like looking around for a human. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Not quite the case. She's a reflection of a rainbow. But, she saw a small, and I hadn't seen it before, but we could be driving here and there'll be a small patch of like a little circle of a rainbow in the sky. And it's a beautiful blue sky. And she's like, oh, I can see Uncle John. And then my son will look and he's like, I don't see anything. So because the message isn't for you, it's for her. Yeah. And so like it will show up when it needs to. And I just said to the kids, but don't expect it to be the most common thing you would see. So if you said rainbow, we all go in the sky. You said rainbows are an array of colours. And, at the time, my son was struggling to go back to school after John's passing because he was really close to him. And I said, just remember, he can show you he's there. And next minute he's gone, Mum, that building, the whole side of it's a rainbow colour. I said, see? So if you're feeling overwhelmed at school, ask him to show you he's there and he will show you. And, and lo and behold, he was turning up. He suddenly was spotting the signs that were all around him. He just wasn't noticing them before. So it was a good little comfort for him through that process and journey because, all the kids by their own choice have put a photo of beside their beds and granddad. And so, they chat to them all the time. I reckon that we talk more about them now than they ever do. And they do love it, they're saying, you can ask. So you could practice that on yourself, if it's somebody you want to communicate with or you want them to show them a sign that they're around you, ask them. But tell them what the sign is that you'd like to see.
Yeah, okay. And when you're going into your own records, you're just asking that, aren't you? Like, I want to access my Akashic record.
Yeah, so I have a little prayer that I ask God to put a shield of love and truth permanently around me, and that any messages that are from Him to come straight through to me. I ask family, guides, masters and angels, those who have crossed over, to channel to me, and then I ask the Lords of the Akashic Records to grant me permission to access into my records.
Right.
So, then that's what was taught to me by a mentor as the right way to. And then when you're finished, close your records, thank them and close them with deepest gratitude. It's just a nice practice. Sometimes I get cheeky and go, I'll just leave them open and see what else comes through. And then I go, oh, okay, maybe I need to close that.
It's like the running of the bulls. It's like, boom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So it's really respecting that space as well, isn't it, when you're doing that work?
Yeah, it is.
To open them, do the work that you need, and then close it off too. Because I think energetically you can't be open. I mean, you and I both know this. Energetically you can't be open to that realm all the time, because it just drains you.
It's very draining, I know that some of my clients are actually psychics and mediums, and I know that they can feel that exhaustion. I find that, I only have a certain number of calls I'll do in a day, because, I'll get to the point that I'm like, oh, actually, I'm really tired. And, I have a joke in our house, because I swear to God, my husband and my sister think I'm on speed dial for Darwin and Akashic Records. I'm like, and every time I'm like, oh God, I feel really, and my husband's always doing the line, well, did you tap in to find out what that is? And I'm like, stop saying that. He's right. And I don't know why I never think to always do it, but, I don't always think to do it on myself, I guess.
Yeah.
But when I get into it and I, sit there, and just because life's busy, 3 kids and, running a business, I need to make more time, but that's a conscious effort on my own part.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can, tap in on daily practice if you want to. They say that the best time to do it is, you get up in the morning, you wake up, you go to the toilet, rather than go off and do whatever, pick up your phone, go back to bed and close your eyes.
Right.
And then tap in then, because that is where you're at the most open state that you can ask questions and receive messages.
Yeah.
Not always doable when you're a mum. So I usually find that I'll go, and I've got my favorite place to go and sit and tune in, and I'll just sit there and let what comes. And I might not necessarily go through the full prayer of accessing in, but I'll ask that they be open, and I'll let messages come through.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So we actually only have a couple of minutes left.
We'll go this long.
I know. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all of my guests before we finish. So can you share with us at the moment, Anne, what is your favourite quote, and why is it really important to you at this time?
My favourite quote is, life is a journey, not a race, and embrace every step, for each one shapes your story. And it's just a reminder that life is busy, but, just to stop and be in the moments. I have a word of the year. That's what my family does. And my word for this year is pink. And so, no, I don't want to be the rock star pink. But there's a really great lady on Instagram that I was following, or that I follow, Lindsay Girk, and she's got a brand called Get Your Pink Back. And it was about how flamingos, when they're raising their young, their colour pink dulls down. And when they're finished, it comes back. So it was very symbolic for mums. My husband's always saying, you have forever put everyone else before you. You need to, I want you to look after you. I want you to start putting you first, not us. We can do our own thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, this year, 2025, I'm bringing the pink back.
Right.
So, and that quote is about, doing the things, just stopping and being in the moment. Life just flies by so quickly. I just don't want to miss it, I'm laughing because my eldest is in year 9 this year, and I'm like, when did that happen? Like, who said you could get and he's like really tall. Like, my husband and I both fit under his arm, I'm like, I'm the way of the tiny people. And I'm like, it just escapes, which is why I love those the 365-day journal, because it means that we all sit together and we draw, because one of my sons and my daughter, actually, all my kids are creative. One of them just refuses to. But we sit there and just get into that creative zone. But it means, they love having that time with me drawing. So, that's part of that process. So I'm in the middle of painting a picture that has a flamingo on it to symbolize it, to remind myself and have it around me. Beautiful. Yeah, so
beautiful.
Getting the pink back.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining again today.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It's been such a pleasure.
And I've learned so much more about the Akashic Records, and I'm sure that you've left the audience with a lot to ponder. We've put the code up there for your website and to book in for a reading if they're interested.
Thank you.
So thank you, Anne. And also just want to thank all of our amazing sponsors and dedicated listeners and supporters. And I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And thank you so much again, Anne.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.